Good evening, everyone. I should say it's been quite a day for me traveling back and forth from Austin. Glad to be back home. Not glad to be talking about severe weather overnight, but that is a distinct possibility. So let's just get right into it. So this is the current radar, and as you can see over Dallas Fort Worth, the North Texas in general, nothing going on. We do see some showers and thunderstorms in Northeast Texas. Those are not severe, but if you've heard on the weather news today, we've had quite a few tornadoes, unfortunately, in the mid Mississippi Valley, spreading up into the Midwest. So, and from my understanding and getting back home and quickly checking reports, unfortunately, we have had some damage in that part of the country, and so prayers out to them for sure. Unfortunately, they're not going to be the only one having to deal with severe weather. Now, I don't think we're going to see that type of severe weather, the very damaging tornadoes, but unfortunately, overnight, and especially as we get into the early morning, probably after 3 a.m., give or take, we have a chance to see some severe thunderstorms in North Texas, and mainly in the form of hail. Now, what's going to happen is we are going to have a warm front move up from the north. I know it didn't feel like it that much, but we did have a cold front move through the metroplex earlier today. That's what kind of triggered that broken line of showers and thunderstorms, mainly in the eastern part of the metroplex. They kind of ramped up a little bit after noon, but then they moved on to northeast Texas. But that was in conjunction with the cold front that was moving through. Probably cool front's a better way to put it. And that cold front right now, expand. Let me make this a little bigger here. Yeah. So roughly that warm front is somewhere like that. So what we're expecting is that this warm front overnight, especially after midnight, will start to move back this way, and most likely, probably after 3 a.m., you may be looking at the position of the warm front, something like that. If that is indeed the case, then any areas north of the warm front would have the ability to produce severe thunderstorms, mainly in the form of hail, and it could be rather large hail. And so that's why I wanted to come on tonight and talk about the chances of that. I just don't want anybody to be surprised if they happen to wake up to that and see that the hail threat is ongoing. And let me check something real fast. I think we're okay there. Yes, we are okay there. All right. And let me check one other thing. Want to make sure all my connections are live, and I don't know that they are, to be honest. Let me go back. Well, that looks good. I apologize. I want to make sure that this is all going. Okay, it appears it is. All right. So move on there. So again, this is the current radar, and you can still see tornado warnings in Arkansas, and they just had a really rough day. So that's kind of let's summarize what we're talking about as far as the overnight hours. So this is kind of this is the setup we're dealing with, and as I drew on the radar just a second ago, the areas in yellow have the best chance to see severe thunderstorms during the overnight hours. And so, again, this is all in relation to a warm front that's going to move north, and that warm front is going to cause the air to lift. And once that air is lifted, that's when we see showers and thunderstorms. And I would imagine once they start to form, it'll be rather quick. Now, the bad news, well, that's bad news regardless, but what makes it worse is that this will all happen during the overnight hours when everybody's asleep. And so I would say, not to alarm anybody, but I would say that if you do have something outside that you need to protect from hail, I would definitely do that before you go to bed. It's like any other severe weather scenario. Not everybody is going to see the really bad weather, but there's just a chance that you could. And we're going to go over those specific chances here in just a second. So, this is the general area, and the window for this, as you can see at the bottom, is pretty broad. Now, of course, this covers all of North Texas. So, you're talking about probably anytime after 1 a.m., that's probably on the early side. I would say probably more likely for most of us, if we saw something, it would be in the 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. range. On the later end, of course, it could be into the early morning, the after sunrise into mid morning hours. I think that was probably on the latter end of it. But like I said, I think that the key time is 2 a.m. maybe at the earliest, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., kind of in the middle. That's as far as the weather models. That's what we're looking at. So again, this is not necessarily a tornado threat. It's more of a hail threat. However, the tornado threat is not zero because when we do have these warm fronts, which they're boundaries, and when we do get storms that form on the boundary like that, they can that boundary can cause the air to rotate, and that tends to be more conducive for supercells that can produce tornadoes. Now, the threat's not near as great for tornadoes as it is hail, but it's not zero either. And damaging winds, of course, is another threat we have. So let's look at we're going to look at the severe weather threats here as far as graphically from the Storm Prediction Center. And let me go over here. Get that pulled up. There we go. All right. So this is focused on North Texas, of course. So this is the categorical risk that the Storm Prediction Center puts out. This is the latest advisory they have, which was issued about 8 p.m. So not too long ago. So categorically, we are in a slight risk. Actually, I think that is the wrong date. My apologies. There we go. All right. That's I was like, wait a minute, we're not in a slight risk. So right now we are in a enhanced risk. That's level 3 out of 5. That's the orange for severe weather during the overnight hours, categorically. And so, as I always like to mention, that is your chance of seeing a severe weather event, whether it's a tornado, hail, or damaging winds, within 25 miles of your house, if you're within the orange area, of course. Now, the level 3 out of 5 raises that percentage risk, up to about 15%. So that is something that, so instead of having a 2% chance or a 5% chance or a 10% chance, you're talking about 10 to 15% chance of seeing that, and obviously your odds go up. That's why, and this is for hail, and as we'll see, we kind of break down the individual severe weather categories. This is the tornado risk for overnight. Now, most of the metroplex. Let's see if I get my drawing tool here to work. That is not it. Let's see. It's been a long day. Uh, doesn't. Oh, here we go. There we go. So most of North Texas is in the green, which is the 2% tornado probability, 5%, and then you have this hatched area, which is 15%, and the hatched area is you have two tornadoes or greater, 10% chance. So we are not in any of that, thankfully, but we are in the 2% tornado risk, which is, you don't want to be in any tornado risk, to be honest. But like I said, tornadoes aren't really the main threat overnight. It is hail. Yeah, that's an ugly looking map. So just to refresh everybody what you're looking at, the brownish dark orange, if you will, that's a 5% hail risk. The yellow is a 15% hail risk, and the red is a 30% hail risk. Now, in addition to that, you see the black hatched in area, and that is a kind of an additional layer that the Storm Prediction Center puts on it to where they say, okay, in addition to all those percentages I just mentioned, that the hatched area, you have a 10% chance of seeing 2-inch diameter hail or larger. So, again, golf ball size is an inch and three quarters. So, 2 inches is obviously bigger than golf balls. Now, I know the percentages get a little tricky because, okay, you just told me, Jeff, that you have a 30% chance to see hail within 25 miles of a point, but then you're telling me I only have a 10% chance. No, that's don't take that away from it. So, and not to be too complicated, but a little bit of my weather nerd's going to come out. So, if you go back to the red, yes, 30% chance of seeing hail within 25 miles from your house. Hail of any severe size. So remember that the low criteria for severe hail is 1 inch, quarter size hail. So that's you have a 30% chance of seeing that within 25 miles of your house. Now, in addition to that, there's a 10% chance that you could see hail 2 inches in diameter or greater, which again, that's approaching tennis ball size on the high end. So really what that means is that you have a decent chance to see any kind of severe hail inch in diameter or greater. But you just have this additional layer of seeing, well, in addition to that, you have a 10% chance to see really, really big hail. So not to be too confusing, but it's just that obviously the hatched area is something to be, not concerned about in the sense that, don't, you know, don't not go to bed tonight because it might happen. It's just that there's just a greater chance if we do have hailstorms, they're unfortunately going to produce, or at least they have a chance anyway, to produce large hail as opposed to just inch of diameter hail. That's really what that's saying. So, and then also, and just we'll look at the damaging wind. Uh, Again, this is not a zero threat either. The brownish, if you will, color is a 5% wind risk. Of course, yeah, every part of North Texas is in the 15% category of seeing in the wind risk. And again, that's measured on severe criteria, which is 58 miles an hour or greater. Yes, Kara, I do not want to see any large hail either. Thank you for tuning in, Kara. I appreciate you. I don't want to see that either. And hopefully we won't. But my thing is, I got to let you know what the probabilities are, and the chances are. And I just, I'd rather you. I don't want anybody to see. I don't want anybody to see any hail tonight. Unfortunately, I think somebody in the North Texas area will probably see something at the very least, but hopefully not. But if you do wake up to hail, unfortunately, then number one, the reason we're talking about it tonight is I don't want you to wake up like totally shocked, like, hey, where'd this come from? That's number one. And number two is that if you do have something that you can protect from hail, then now's the time to do it. That's really twofold. Uh, I thank you, Kara, or you're welcome, Kara. I appreciate you saying that. All right, so again, in summary, I'll run through these real quick if you're just joining us. This is a categorical risk, which is enhanced 3 out of 5. Tornado, most of Dallas Fort Worth is in 2%. You do have a little 5% southeast. So if these storms do produce tornadoes, they'd probably be more down there. Again, we just talked about the hail, but you do not want to see a probability map with hail like that. Not doesn't mean that everybody's going to see it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen 100%, but it's definitely a decent chance, I would say, that it would happen. And then, of course, the wind. Again, this is wind 58 miles an hour or greater. And these storms, if you see a storm and you don't see big hail, I mean, you might see big wind. I mean, it's and like I said, you might see a tornado. Like I said, the tornado risk is much lower than the hail risk, but it's not zero. So Um, that is something that I just want you to be aware of. And speaking of that, that's a good segue. And I know I preach this every time, and so those of y'all who have gotten the weather radio, bravo! I appreciate you doing that. Let me get this comment real quick. Well, Roger, I think you should if you have any way to do that. Obviously, a garage is the best way to do that, but yeah, I would. I would not chance leaving your cars out. That's for sure. And hello, April. Coming to this late. That's okay, April. Better late than never. What time is that possible hail coming? Yeah, so we talked about that in the beginning. At the very least, after midnight, but most likely you're talking about probably 2, 3, 4 a.m. It could even be even later than that. As I was talking about at the top of the broadcast, is that yes, howdy. And for those of y'all who saw my morning weather report, I was in Austin, down at the state capitol doing some mayor stuff. And yeah, so I was way too close to that one school, and you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, but yeah, so this is, I can't stress this enough. And obviously, if you don't have one, you're not going to have one by tonight. But this is a classic scenario to where you're going to be asleep, you're going to go to bed. And yes, as I'm talking to you tonight, we are going to, at least a possibility, we are going to see a chance of storms. And somebody's going to see this in North Texas. Hopefully, it's not us. But with that being said, you need to know that it's coming, or the possibility is that it's coming. Yes, yes, April, gross indeed. So now, Kara, I'm showing you this because I'm give everybody equal time, and I'll just leave that where it is. If anybody wants to give an Aggie thumb up, I'm cool with that too. I'll show that. So it is. It's just another way to be aware. And like I talked about last time, is that unfortunately your cell service could go out. Your phone battery could die. We all like to charge our phones when we go to bed, but sometimes they don't get charged. I know that's happened to me before. So this is a great backup for you to have in case you can't get the warning anywhere else. Hello, Carmen. How are you? And and again, I can't do it while I'm broadcasting because I've tried before. It's just that um, I'll do the link in the chat after I sign off. Again, it's on Amazon. I promise you, I don't make a dime from it. But it's a great weather radio, and even okay, I knew this was coming. Hello, Amy. Get your guns up. So yes, get your guns up. The lovely Mrs. Pickerstaff went to Tech, so I got to give Tech love. Yes, Fatty, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. So like I said, I'll put this link in the chat after we're done. And again, if you don't have one, it's obviously too late to get one tonight, but I would encourage you to get one for the next time, because as I mentioned on my last report, severe weather season is just starting, and it's not even done for this week, and it's already it's already Wednesday, but we're not even done yet. All right, so get those weather radios. So I know we talked a lot about overnight, but we do need to talk about the rest of the week. So once these storms, if they do form overnight, get through with us, which hopefully they won't do much of anything, we'll have a break tomorrow during the day. And tomorrow night, as you can see from this graphic, we may see some severe thunderstorms northwest of Dallas Fort Worth. And then as we get into Friday morning, as you can see from this bottom graphic, we do have another chance for severe weather on Friday. And again, same thing. Large hail is a threat, damaging wind is a threat. Tornadoes are probably a little bit more of a threat then than there will be overnight. But again, we're just going to have another round of this. So sadly, if you get through this, it's not over. And actually, when we go to Friday night, Saturday morning, another chance for severe thunderstorms. Again, this is a map on Friday night and then Saturday morning, and you see that cold front. And so, really, on Saturday at some point, the severe weather chances will be over, and we actually have a pretty strong cold front that's gonna move through on Saturday, and it's this the first part of April is not gonna really feel like April. I'm not saying it's gonna get down to freezing or anything, but it's gonna feel chilly, that's for sure. You know, there's an old joke in weather that April is the last month that winter tries to hang on, and I think that that will definitely be the case. You know, this at least the first part of April, it's gonna be cool. So I'm just giving you a heads up if you have enjoyed this nice warm weather we've had. Um, you know, it's not gonna be that warm. At least the first part, but not gonna be winter, but it's definitely gonna be cool. Yes, go Tech, of course. All right, so let me back up just a little bit. I'm gonna go back to the radar, and that is actually not what I want. Well, actually, I'll just stay here. So, again, for those of y'all just joined us, this is the hail threat assessment map that the Storm Prediction Center puts out. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, you do not want to see a map like this when it comes to hail prediction. Real quick, again, the brownish orangish area, 5% hail risk, yellow 15% risk, the red, which includes all of Dallas Fort Worth and really most of North Texas, 30% hail risk. And again, that's the chance of seeing inch in diameter hail or larger within 20, within 25 miles of your house. Now, in addition to that, you have the hatched black area that adds another layer onto that. So there's another layer to that, so you can see a 10%. You have a 10% chance of seeing 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of your house. So it's kind of a stacked layer there. So as you can tell, we're in the 30% for inch in diameter hail or greater, and we're also in the hatched area for 2-inch hail or greater. So yeah, not a good combination. You don't want to you don't want to be in that kind of forecast, but that's what we have. This is a categorical risk, so it's the enhanced risk overnight. As I mentioned in the very beginning, the tornado threat is not zero. It is, but it's not the biggest threat. I think overnight. I just don't see that. Uh, d- okay, yeah, yeah. If you can cover your cars, I would, Roger. What directions will the winds come from tonight? With these storms, most likely from the south. Now, I know a lot of times when we get these storms that move in from the northwest, you'll get a northwest wind, but these storms are most likely going to be moving from the south or southwest, some kind of, so they'll be coming from the south. So if you have anything that faces south, any southwest, southeast, anything like that, but especially toward the western side, that's if you have hail, that's where the biggest threat would be for damage. Um, yeah, not trying to depress anybody, but it's just something that it's just a possibility, and definitely want to come on and talk about it. And let me see if I could do that a little better graphically here. I don't want to do that. Let's see, do this. All these different windows to look at. Okay, so I'll zoom in on this. And by the way, there's still some scattered sprinkles out there, but again, the forecasted position of the warm front after midnight, well, really close to 2-3 a.m. is something like that. It won't be exactly like that, but when this warm front starts to move up from the south this way, then anything here would have the chance to see severe thunderstorms, and again, hail being the biggest threat. So if you had a storm, say that formed like here, then it's going to move in this general direction, give or take. So that's why I said it'd kind of be from the south. So of course, here's northeast Dallas County, Garland, Saxe, Wiley, all those guys. That's why if you had a storm that had hail in it, I'm not saying it's going to be hail driven or wind driven hail that's maybe 80 miles an hour, but that side of your house would be the most likely, um, you know, area if it's not protected would see some damage. And let me get Barbara on here. Hello, Barbara. Missed the beginning, so it's hell for our area in Murphy. It is, yes. It pretty much, Barbara, anywhere in North Texas has a chance to see hail overnight. It's just unfortunately that is just something that's a possibility. I wish I had better news, but it's not. And Barbara, just to kind of give you a graphical look at it, yeah, there's a startling picture for sure, and so that's our hail threat. And again, 30% chance to see hail within 25 miles of your house, and so that is, and I'll go back to what I said in the very beginning. This does not mean that every single piece of real estate in red is going to see hail. I know we like to get caught up. We get caught up in that sometimes. Is that, hey, well, oh my gosh, everybody's going to see hail and everybody's going to have damage. That is not going to be the case. The problem is with weather prediction is, okay, we don't have the technology to say, okay, in Murphy at 3:03 a.m. you're going to have golf ball size hail. We don't have that technology. So what we do have is that we have enough model technology to say, well, based on the forecast position of the warm front, based on the dynamics of the atmosphere, is that, boy, if a storm formed, it would likely produce big hail, and that's what you see here. And of course, everything like this has a margin of error because, again, we don't have the technology to say, hey, it's going to be right here at this exact time. So it's just an education, it's an awareness to say, hey, if you're in these areas that are shaded, then you do have a chance to see hail. So it's like anything else. You always hope that, okay, it's not great forecast, but it doesn't mean it's going to come exactly to fruition like they say it would. But again, but I do think that somebody, hopefully not anybody at all, but I just think somebody's going to see something. I don't even, not even saying it's going to be a huge giant hill, but I just think the atmosphere is very prime for that. And, if you go outside, I mean, you can feel it. My grandmother used to always say, "Oh, I feel rain coming." Of course, when I was a little kid, I used to, "Oh yeah, whatever." Uh, but as I've gotten older, you kind of get it. It's like, okay, well, there's definitely moisture in the air, and just because it's humid doesn't automatically mean it's going to rain. And last night was a good example. Even though I was down in Austin, obviously I was watching the weather up here, and the atmosphere then last night was primed for severe thunderstorms. That was really more of a tornado threat. But as I mentioned this morning, our capping inversion just saved our bacon last night because it was, we knew it was going to be strong anyway, but it was even stronger than we thought. And so that happens sometimes. And so you had an enhanced risk yesterday, and or well, for us, for most of the Metroplex, it was a slight risk, but nobody saw anything. And so I don't think we'll get that lucky tonight. It's just that I just want to emphasize that it's not a guarantee. I don't want anybody to be overly concerned that, oh, the worst of the worst is going to happen at my house, because that's not necessarily the case. And like I said, I hope nobody does. Yeah, I gotta put this up. Yeah, we love the cap. We do. And by the way, we still do have a cap above us. It's not as strong, and we kind of forecasted that, but it's still there. And if nothing else, we kind of hope that mitigates some things a little bit. Actually, what I'm going to do, this will actually be a good exercise. I'm going to pull up a model. I'm doing this on the fly. And I'm kind of give you an idea of what some of the models say. And I always hesitate a little bit to do this because I models tend to be wrong, but they're actually really good indicators of what could happen. All right, so let's do this. Here we go. All right, pull up the right one before we get too deep into it. Before I show it. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, okay, I'll start with this one. Make sure this is most the latest up to date one. Actually, let's do this. All right, so let me switch this. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Okay, so this is the HRRR, the high rapid refresh. Did I get that right? High resolution rapid refresh. Like I said, it's been a long day. Uh, Jeff, you are just in time. Which direction will the wind be blowing? Out of the south. But I'm about to show you why that's a big deal. So, as I mentioned from the very beginning, we do have a warm front that's forecast to move north out of central Texas tonight. And so, this is the HRRR model. This is what we call a convective allowing model. And that's just a real fancy way of saying that it's modeled, it is really does well modeling for thunderstorms. Thunderstorms are a convective process. So, I'm gonna go. This is, let's see, what time does this start? I have this on here. Yeah, this is 3 a.m. Okay, so so this is 3 a.m. Actually, I'm gonna make this just a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so this is 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5. Now, again, this is a model. Just doesn't mean it's gonna happen exactly like this. So you can see down here. I mean, you can see a little kind of a little hook signature right there. It doesn't mean it's going to be a tornado. It's just it's classic supercell. This hail producer, and you see these type storms. And you even see some storms up here. Now, again, this is let's see. This is 5 a.m., 6, 7, and then as you can see, as time goes on, that the threat lessens. Now, let me back up a couple frames. Okay, so again, this is one model. I'm going to show you another one in just a second. This is one model, but you get the gist of it is that this is if this model was absolutely correct, which it won't be, by the way, you would see these hail producing storms. Um, this is Stephenville right here. This Weatherford. However, if this model is just off just a little bit, hey Andrew, thank you for watching on YouTube. Appreciate that. Say instead of here, say they're here, in the Metroplex. So that's why you have such a broad risk of, you know, 30% hail because, this model is not going to be exact. I can almost promise you that it's not going to be just like this. Now, like this storm in particular, though, here it's got not much, but it's got a little bit of a bow to it. So that would be more of a wind threat than a hail threat. So that's why they had the wind threat too. Yeah, Kara says I remember back when the big tornado hit Rowlett, the dew points were high. It's 58 in Saxby right now, according to the Weather Channel app. Does dew point affect hail sizes? It does. What's the dew point at my house? My weather station here. Yeah, 58. Oh, here they nailed that one. So it does. Not. It's not. There's not a direct correlation with that, but it just means that there's more moisture in the air. There's obviously more water vapor. There's obviously going to start out with more rain. Then when you get these strong, and I think most people remember. Hopefully, most people remember high school class or science class. Is that you get these updrafts, and you get these, and the cloud's so tall that maybe half the cloud is above the freezing level. So you get these raindrops initially that get pulled back up in the cloud when they get above the freezing level, and of course they got a layer of ice on it. And the more, as you probably know, that the more they go up and down, the bigger the hail gets because the ice layers just keep getting piled on. And then when they get too heavy, gravity takes over and they just come to the ground. If the updraft is relatively weak, and that process happens, that's when you get the pea-sized hail, maybe the marble. But when the updraft is really strong, that's when you get the golf balls and the bigger. And that's what these storms could be, overnight. So yes, when the dew points are low, and not to get too nerdy, but I'm broadcasting tonight, so I guess I can. You know, with supercells, you have well, you have 3 types, but the 2 extreme types are HP or heavy precipitation, or you have LP supercells, which are low precipitation. And these LP supercells are typically out in West Texas. But you have supercell, but you don't have a lot of rain. With the HP, you have a ton of rain, and HP supercells tend not to have as much hail because there's so much rain. The LP supercells, not always, but they tend to have more hail because there's not as much rain. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but the dew point does matter. Yes, Kara. So that's the H triple R. For grins, we're gonna go with the NAM, the North American model, and just to see what it says overnight. Again, this is the another a convection line model. This is this is 2 a.m. 3, and again, you could see some forecasted supercells. There's 4 a.m. Now you can, this is this is a model, but this is Parker County, west of Fort Worth. And then 6 a.m. No, 7. Wait a minute. Daylight savings time's always throws you off. Yeah, that's 7, 8, 9, and again, same thing. After 9 o'clock, not really expecting this type of activity. Now, if you go back a couple frames, this that is that's like this. That's 1 a.m. And you can kind of tell that that maybe the warm front's right here, and they start out in West Texas, and then they move across. Now, this model is more saying, hey, these are going to be more west of us than east of us, right there with us. But again, that's one model, and you can't just obviously go by one model. I don't know. Let me try one more here. I don't know if that's just going to give us what we want. This is not a convection allowing model, but yeah, okay. So I'm just curious. Let me get my right. Oh, that's way in advance. Yeah, that's not. For these, let's try. Actually, this is actually the most recent H triple R. Let me go back. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so this is 3 a.m., 4, 5. That one's north of the Metroplex. 6. Now watch this guy. 7, 8 a.m. Not so. So again, the previous H triple R model showed storms kind of west of us. Another model showed the storms north of us, Metroplex. So, that's why they had the broad swath of, hey, there's 30% chance. And it really, I wanted to show those models for a couple reasons. One is I did want to show you that, in every single one of these models is not a 100% coverage on hail. So that's number one. And number two is that, this one model says this, another model says this. And so again, it's just to give you an idea that that's why they had to do these broad swaths of, in this case, 30% hail risk, is because they don't know exactly where it's going to be. So, and like I said earlier, it's just, I don't want anybody to be overly concerned about, oh my gosh, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and my car is going to be destroyed or anything like that. It's just that it's an awareness thing. It's just, hey, if you could do something to protect your property overnight, then I would definitely do it. If you can't for some reason, well, it's okay too. Hopefully, nothing will come of it. All right, so let's go back here really quickly. See if I missed anything else. Let's go to the radar. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in motion actually because I want you to see something. Updating here. Okay, that looks like. I was wondering for a second there. I was thinking, is this are these storms already starting to form? But it looks like these are false echoes. Thank goodness. So I wanted to show you this because part of the forecast models that we're looking at tonight is that prior to these storms potentially forming after midnight, is that you we call these they're not there's no lightning with it, they're just showers, but we call these warm advection showers. I know it's a real nerdy term, but that's just a real fancy way of saying that the air is very moist and it's humid, and there's just a little bit of lift to form these showers. It's not the main lift with the warm front, but it's just like, hey, these don't between now and if you get big storms, which hopefully you won't, but between now and potential big storms, yeah, you could get a shower. I don't know that you're going to hear thunder or see a lightning strike or anything, but you could. But it's not the main show. Like I said, so if you're just joining us, then right now, just as you see from the radar, just these warm advection showers, nothing to be worried about. After midnight, especially after 1, 2 a.m., is that everything in yellow, you have a 30% chance, according to the Storm Prediction Center, to see hail, uh, at the very least 1 inch in diameter. And you also have a 10% chance of seeing a hailstone 2 inches in diameter or larger. Also have a wind possibility, and you have a smaller tornado possibility. It's the concerns, as you can see from this graphic over here. Hail is the biggest threat. Wind just a little bit less, and tornado not so much, but doesn't mean it's zero. And this trend will continue tomorrow night into Friday morning, as you can see there. And again, the biggest threat's large hail. Damaging winds is up there, and tornadoes are actually a little bit more of a threat tomorrow night and Friday than they are overnight. And if that's not enough for you, and then Friday night into Saturday morning is our third and final chance for severe weather. And let me put Kara's comment up here. They do not. Yes. Unfortunately, no, Kara. They do not help stabilize the atmosphere. And the reason is that's a great question. The reason is they don't is because they're actually formed above the cap. So I know it sounds crazy sometimes because we the cap is our friend because you have this unstable air at the surface, and then it can only go so high and it runs into this layer of warm air and it just kind of knocks the clouds down. But the atmosphere is a it's just a I don't know what the right word is. It's just an amazing our atmosphere is a God created thing, of course, and it's just amazing how it works. And so you can get these disturbances that ride up over the cap, and you have these showers, and sometimes they're thunderstorms, but you see these showers that form above the cap, and the rain falls through the cap. And ironically, not only do they not stabilize the atmosphere, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that rain falling through the cap can actually help weaken it. So, not saying that's going to be the case here, but it's interesting. Sometimes that does happen. Like I said, with the warm front coming, I think there's going to be enough lift with the warm front overnight. So that's why we're going to see these showers and these thunderstorms. But great question though. Um, like I said at the very beginning, I will post this when I sign off here in a minute. If you do not have a weather radio, I talked about this forever, so shame on you. No, just kidding. But it's something that you should get. It runs on batteries. It does not require you to have a cell signal. And as I said earlier, you may have a cell signal, but if that phone doesn't get plugged in like you thought it got plugged in before you go to bed, you might not have a battery. And then of course, if you don't have a battery and your power has already gone off, then you can't charge it. You'll never have to worry about that. No weather radio, uh, you know, broadcast on a frequency much like AM and FM. It's different, of course, but it's over the air. And if your cell tower goes out, it's still going to broadcast. If you don't have any electricity, it's still going to broadcast. But more importantly, is that when we had these severe weather events at night, I'm going to bed just like you are. I'm not waiting up, although there's part of me that wants to, but I'm not waiting up to see what if and when something happens. I'm going to bed, and I would highly recommend y'all go to bed too. But if it's something that's not great, and the weather service issues a severe thunderstorm warning for whatever, if it's hail, high winds, or even God forbid to be a tornado warning, then you need to know about that before it gets to your place. And that's why these things, I will tell you, if you don't have one and you get one later, and you ever hear the alarm, and by the way, you can't adjust the volume, it's loud. And you may think, especially during the day, you may think, man, that is loud. How do I turn that down? Well, number one, you can't. And there's a reason for that, because it's designed that the decibel level is, and then, now don't get me wrong, it's not 100 decibels or anything like that, but the decibel level is designed to wake you up out of a dead sleep. And so that is why it gets loud, or certainly during the day, it may seem really loud. So, like I said, I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done. It's Amazon. I don't get a dime for it, so don't worry about that. Um, but also, too, I know if you don't have a weather radio already, you're not going to get one tonight. So there's other things you could do, of course. Make sure that phone's charged, of course, before you go to bed. Uh, the make sure your weather alerts are enabled to WEA. That's in your settings if it's iPhone. I'm not real sure what it is on Android. If you happen to have a weather radio already, go ahead and test it and make sure it's functioning properly. There's a test button on there. But then beyond all that, if you get woken up tonight, which I hope you don't, but if you get woken up tonight and it's I hope it's not a tornado warning. But if it's a hail warning, or especially if it's high winds, just know where you're gonna go. It doesn't have to be a tornado with high winds. You don't want to be near your windows or anything like that. And some of us have kiddos upstairs. Yeah, they don't need to be upstairs. If you have a severe weather warning, they don't need to be upstairs. They need to be downstairs. And so just make sure that they know that. And if your power goes out, yes, have a flashlight, pair of shoes, extra clothes, and the last point about that, having shoes and things, is chances are, tonight you're not going to have to worry about that. That's really more for the big tornado threats. But it doesn't ever hurt to have those, because if at the ready, if you will, because and especially in the middle of the night, if you for whatever reason have to leave your house and there's damage around, then yeah, you don't want to be in your flip flops. And so it's just something that like I said, I'm not really concerned about that, but just in the bigger picture, especially since we're just starting severe weather season, yeah, make sure you know where your shoes are. Make sure you know where a jacket is, that you can grab really, really quick if you had to leave. I know people aren't going to have hard hats. I get that. I mean, I got them, but I get it. You're not going to. Most people aren't going to have hard hats, but it is something that you know, if you're in a tornado warning in your house, of course you're not going to leave. Yeah, you want to protect your head against flying objects and things like that. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that tonight because that's not our big threat. But like I said, the tornado threat is not zero. So it's just always good idea to have those things at the ready if you need them. But the big takeaway, other than getting the weather radio, is that just make sure that you talk to your family, especially if it's a middle of the night thing, that, hey, if we have really, really bad weather, this is what we need to do. This is the part of the house we're going to go to. That's all I'm saying. It's never hurts to do that. All right. I don't see a whole lot more in the chat, but I will go back to the radar. And yeah, so these showers are just kind of what they are. They're just showers. Nothing to be terribly concerned about. And I'll give you, actually, let's do this. Lastly, for those who may have relatives in different part of the country, I'm going to take a look at that real quick. Put it right around here. So as you can see, there is And it's really there's all these red areas are tornado warnings. Um, just a bad situation going on there. And I know it's hard to see. Matter of fact, I'm going to switch back to the other one that shows up a little bit better. Yes. Yeah. Whoops, that's probably too big. So you see all these red boxes here. They're all tornado warnings, and it's just makes me sad. Not every single one of those are on the ground, but I know we've had damage already. Uh, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 tornado warnings right now in the country. That's just crazy. But they're most of them are in Kentucky, Indiana, some in Tennessee, some in Arkansas. So those are the states that are mostly affected by that. So if you have relatives in those areas, I'm sure if they're underneath one of those, I'm sure they've already been warned. But just make sure you tell them or you check on them, just to give you an idea. This expand this out a little bit more. I would even say, oops, do this because yeah, that's up near Indianapolis. Oh, there's a tornado warning in Indianapolis. I would say if you have relatives that live anywhere kind of in this area that's just south of Columbus, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Nashville, the northern part of Alabama. If you have friends or relatives that live in that part of the country, the weather's not there yet. Yeah, I mean, give them a heads up. Text them, call them, just say, "Hey, everything okay?" You got weather coming that way. So it's and actually we can illustrate that a different way. Do this. There we go. I'm going to make this. Oh, well, no, still do this. Okay, so see that peak on there? That's high risk, and as I always talk about, that's a 3 out of 5. I'm sorry, that's a 5 out. There's 5 categories of severe weather outlook, and we don't see high that often. I mean, sometimes we see high like 3 4 times a year, and that's it. Sometimes we go a whole year without seeing that. Sometimes 2 years. So that's a big deal, and unfortunately, we've seen a lot of tornadoes today. And so, if you have family that lives anywhere in this area, especially if they live on the eastern part of it, yeah, give them a call. Just say, hey, shoot them a text and say, hey, just want to make sure you're okay because they're having a rough night tonight. And going back to our weather, you can see that this enhanced risk, kind of goes back into here because of that warm front that's going to come. Okay, is Cincinnati okay? Yes, right now. They are forecast to be in it a little bit later. So Cincinnati on this map is right here. So they're right at they're probably technically in a moderate risk as opposed to high. But yeah, so yeah, they got some weather coming later. And this is the broader picture of the tornado risk. And, you see a 30%, the pink here, and the hatched, which is seeing the tornado EF2 or greater, which is 200-mile-an-hour plus winds. And so, yeah, so they have a tornado risk in Cincinnati. They got a wind risk. And they say they have a hail risk, but that's not their biggest concern. The biggest concern is for them in Cincinnati is tornado. Yes, I would highly recommend you do that, Kara. So again, like I said, so we're not the only ones affected by all this, and it's a rough night. It's a rough night for a lot of the country. So definitely be praying for those people, especially the ones that have been actually impacted by tornadoes. And again, to give you a broader picture, this is the tomorrow's. outlook. Obviously, you don't see a high on there, but you still see an enhanced, and some of it's in the same area. And then on Friday, yeah, look at that. So I would say this: if you know people that are in Arkansas, they got 3 days in a row of this. So it's yeah, and of course we're in a slight risk for Friday, and going back to Thursday, slight risk, and of course overnight we have the enhanced risk. So all right, so I think that's about it for me. Not a whole lot more to say. Um, let's go back to the radar real quick before we wrap up. And if you have any questions in the chat, let me know before I sign off. And if you put them in there after I sign off, I'll definitely look at them. See if I can pull up a radar here real quick. Yeah, it's yeah, that's the best. Yeah, what a mess. What a mess. All right, so let's go back down here. That's little. This is Arkansas. That's a little closer to home. Uh, Thankfully, no tornado warning, so that's good. And we get to this Shreveport, and we'll just end with Dallas Fort Worth. And we'll kind of zoom in here a little bit. Whoops. And we'll put that in motion. All right. Like I said, so if you do see showers, they'll come up from the southwest. But like I said, these are not the showers to worry about. That would be potentially overnight, certainly after midnight, but probably after 3 a.m. But if you are woken up at 2 a.m., don't be shocked. But it could be as early as that, or it could be more like 5 a.m. So it's just again, we don't have the technology to know exactly what it is. Okay, so I don't see anything else, and it's been a long day for me. Started my morning in Austin, and of course drove back later. And of course, I'm sure most of you have made that trip, but if you driving from here to Austin, and yeah, well, I drove down there yesterday, but driving back from Austin is yeah, it's not a lot of fun. But I did earlier today. I did a live stream from my car, testing out some equipment, and there was a small chance I would see something, but didn't see anything. But yeah, so it's kind of fun how that got to test out some equipment. So that's good. So that's on my Facebook and YouTube pages. If you want to check that out, I'll go ahead and tell you, there's nothing really exciting on there, but yeah, just just something that when we have another chase day that I can go out and actually chase storms around here, then nice to know that stuff will work. So at least, well, yeah, it works now. And, Murphy's Law says it won't work when I need it. But we won't go there. All right. So that's about it for me. Don't see anything else in the chat. Like I said, just be weather aware tonight. Like I said, don't not go to bed. Nothing like that. It's just that if you don't have a weather radio, then make sure that phone's charged, before you go to bed, and make sure you can get alerts overnight. But then like I said, when I wrap up the live stream, I will put that in the Facebook chat for this live stream about where you can get the link, the Amazon link to get a weather radio. And most days you can get it in less than a day, most of the time. But it won't take you very long to get it. All right, so that is it for me. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's all hope and pray that we don't have anything bad happen to anybody in the Metroplex, anybody, period. But if something does happen, hopefully it's very isolated. And lastly, after this round, that's not the last round. Like I said, we have another chance tomorrow night. We have another chance on Friday night. So as always, I'll be watching it, and I'll keep you up to date on the latest on what's going on in North Texas. Now, I will say this: there is light in the tunnel. Like I said earlier, once this cold front moves through on Saturday, all our storm chances are going to go away. However, it will not feel like spring. It'll feel like early spring next week. So we're going to have a trade-off. So we're not going to have any storms, but we're not going to have 70s and 80s either. We're going to have 50s and 60s for highs. So it is definitely going to be cooler next week. So heads up. on that. You heard it here first. Hey, Karen, how are you? You are very welcome. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. As always, I'm watching the weather, so you don't have to. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Really appreciate your support. And no matter what happens, we're gonna get through it. And then we will go on to the next one, which unfortunately is going to be Thursday and then Friday. So anyway, but I'll be on top of that, of course. And if it's something, I will say this: if it's something that happens overnight and it's something I feel like I need to come on and talk about, I definitely will. But hopefully, you will not hear from me until tomorrow at some point, not between now and sunrise. Let's hope not. But if you need to hear from me, I will be on here telling you, walking you through it and getting you through everything. So, as always, I'm watching the so you don't have to. Hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, and we will talk to you soon. Yes, Roger. I'm going to get some rest right now.